So now, without further ado, we'll introduce our guest speaker today. We've got Dr. John Siebert here from upstairs, just in the same building. Didn't have to travel far this time from Ag Economics. And last week we kind of talked about brainstorming, getting that idea. Dr. Siebert is going to talk to us about how to refine and narrow down and make sure it's applicable. So, John.
Thank you, Kevin. One time Clayton Williams came and talked to my class, and right after he started, I jumped up and said, well, Clayton, we've got such and such we've got to consider. And he looked at me and he said, who's teaching this class, you or me? And I said, oh, you, sir. And I quickly stepped out of his way, and he did a great job, but don't go to hear him speak unless you want to hear a really interesting person and you don't mind cuss words, because that guy can cuss. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to pretend this is my class, and I'm going to do some things that I would do in my class right now. So don't be mad at me if I do some things that kind of cause you any kind of difficulty. But tell me your name. Beth. Okay, could you go over there and sit right next to our professor? And what's your name? Apalupa. And will you land right next to her and bring your stuff? You'll need your stuff. This is a permanent move. This is not temporary. Okay, we can shake hands this way. Yes. What's your name? Kim. Okay, I'm really glad you're here. And will you go land just on the other side of Dr. Briers? Mm-hmm. Okay. And Patrick, and if you could just land in the next row, any old where there's 3 open seats, that's perfect. Now we're set. I have everybody in a space where I can look at them and they can look at me. And I've never had the luxury of, I've had the luxury of teaching in this building, but I've never had the luxury of teaching here with a really small group, so this is really fun. Hopefully I won't really mess up today. The smallest class I ever taught was 8 students, and it was a graduate class, and I had the lowest rated graduate class in the Ag Econ department that semester, and the highest rated undergraduate class. So I taught them both the same way. It was really interesting. So and then Dr. Litzenberg, who was in charge of teaching at that time, came to me and said, John, would you like to add another section of your undergraduate class and not teach a graduate class? And I said, yes! And I've never taught a graduate class until today, after that time. So here I am. If I do really bad, don't be mad at me. Okay, I want to start off with an exercise. Here's my question. That's a bad marker. I brought some markers because I wasn't sure they'd be here. Here's the question. If you needed some money now, if you were in a really difficult situation and you needed some money now, who would you ask? You cannot afford a note. You need money now. Who would you ask? Go ahead and write down on a piece of paper who you would ask. I have got some paper here too if you don't have any. But you could use your computer. I mean, that's a viable option. Does anybody need any paper? I just found these sticky notes up there. We're not going to do a lot of exercises, but I just wanted to set a stage because I'm really sharing with you, and you don't need to hand anything in. I'm really sharing with you what my personal philosophy is about raising money, and not sharing you. And we'll go over some models and things that we'll definitely get there, but I'm just trying to speak from the heart. So when this class ends, you can walk out and think it was a dud, and that's fine. But I want you to know I told you exactly what I believe. I didn't come and try and make a presentation that the pieces all fit together perfectly or anything like that. I'm just telling you exactly what I think about this subject of raising money. So has everybody got their answers?
What's the scope of the money? Is it lunch money?
That's up to you. You just fine. You need some money. That's all.
Some money.
You need some money. We're going to talk about that, Glenn. So can we just kind of really quick list who some of the people are? Who would you ask?
Parents.
Your parents. Okay. I'm going to get my markers down. I should have checked my markers before I started writing. Parents. Okay, that's good. Go ahead. What's your name?
Megan.
Megan.
Friends.
Friend. Okay. Let's keep going.
Honestly, I put self-class because I would rather get it myself before asking my family.
I'll tell you one thing. Your plasma is better than my plasma. I can tell just by looking at you. What's your name?
Kelly.
Kelly. Well, who would you ask?
Parents.
Your Your parents. So we'll add another tick mark.
Parents do.
Parents.
Parents in the bank, I guess.
Parents. Oh, no. When you need money, you can't ask the bank. Banks only give money to people that have money. Does that make sense? Okay. Do we
Oh,
get,
yeah,
okay, now we're over here. What's your name?
Courtney. I said
Courtney.
parents or in-laws.
Parents?
So,
I mean, that's still pretty darn close. And if you ask me who I was closest to, they're all dead now. All the people in that generation except for one. We still have one aunt hanging on. She's really cool, and we talk to her all the time. But, I was much closer to my mother-in-law over time than I was to my parents, just because of the way she was put together.
Oh, fair.
What about brothers?
Okay.
For lunch money, my wife, and for real money, my son-in-law.
Yeah, I've got a daughter-in-law like that. I mean, the multiple that she makes compared to me is a number bigger than 2. I mean, wow, you hit the jackpot, son. Mom, okay. Parent?
I would ask everyone.
Everyone. No, I'm picking one. You need something needs to happen.
Then I would go for 7
So this is basically asking yourself. So I'm gonna don't be mad at me, but it doesn't quite match what I'm trying to talk about right now. So I'm just going to talk about that. What do all these people have in common? What do they all have in common? You're close to them. What's that mean? You're close to them. What's that mean?
they know you, you have a relationship with them.
Very close. That they know you. You've got a relationship. And it's not any kind of relationship. It's a really, really positive relationship. Does that make sense? Okay. So now we've got that one down, and I'm happy with that. Okay, now we're to B, which is Glenn jumped the gun on me, but he had the exact right idea, which is the next thing, which is very, very important in fundraising, which is if you needed some money, how much would you ask for? And I mean, when I say need, I don't mean minor. I mean, you have to get money. So if I call somebody up and they say no, that did me no good. Does that make sense? That's like I went to sell the plasma and they poked the needle in and they said, you ain't got no more left, right? That did you no good. So the plasma, okay. But now, if you needed some money, how much would you ask for? That's my next question. Just write that down on a piece of paper and then we'll talk about it. You're looking at me going, this guy's crazy. But this is personal, okay? It's like you walked into my office and sat down in a chair in my office and we started talking about fundraising. These are the first 2 things I would have talked to you about. And this is what goes through my mind when I have to fundraise. Almost everybody's done. One of my favorite students said, now everybody's done. Okay. So how much would you ask for? I'll start in front now.
The minimum amount that time.
Minimum. Do you have a figure in mind? What would you figure is a minimum amount?
If it's a lunch, it should be $5.
Okay, let's keep going.
It's 2,000.
2,000. Let's keep going.
I think 1,500 is the most I can do.
1,500 is the most, but what's the but if you needed somebody, okay, 1,500. Let's keep. Yeah, I want an actual amount. You want money? You better have an amount in mind. You can't do this without having an amount in mind. You say, "Oh, I need something." That never works. Those calls never work. Pardon? 500.
So I feel guilty for asking for it. It's my pride, man.
I understand. That's why we're talking about this. It's not, I just make something up to make you uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable, so I thought of this, and now we're talking about it.
I said 500.
Okay?
almost embarrassed to say, I would ask for 25,000.
Well, Gary, I noticed you've done a lot more in life than I have. So part of a teacher can only be as good as who he is. So you may have the wrong guy up here. Glenn,
I wrote down 100,000.
100,000.
But that's based on a business budget, business plan budget.
Yeah. Okay.
I have said 500.
500. Okay, that's good. 500. Oh, wait. I'm doing this the hard way.
I said 10,000 or 20,000.
Okay, that's good.
500.
Now we're in the way back.
I still am uncomfortable giving a number, not knowing what I'm asking for it for.
That's all right. You got to make a phone call to somebody you really know, and you've got to get somebody that's going to say yes, and then you have to ask, and in that ask, you've got to say a number. So what's the number?
1,500.
15. Okay?
I said 700.
700. Well, I'm just looking back at my list of questions. Let me be organized. Okay, now my last question. When would you ask? This is my last question. Okay. When would you ask? What time? Mrs. DePippo once told me everything happens in time and space. She was my English teacher. I couldn't stand her. My girlfriend got an A and I got a C or a B in that class. I knew I was smarter than my girlfriend, so that was a big mistake. You never go out with anybody dumber than you, but anyway, it didn't last for that reason. But seriously, I learned my lesson. But when would you make this ask? When? Yeah. When would you make this ask? The beginning of the month? When would you make the ask?
I think I would wait for her to call me, like when there's her regular weekly call me.
Beginning of the month, or when they call me. When would you make this ask?
When you're desperate.
When you're desperate? So what does that mean? When you're desperate? When does that
But
happen?
I can't go anymore because I need this money.
Yeah. So we still
That's
need to
me
pick a point in
personally.
time.
I'm talking about a
Everything
business
happens in
plan.
time and space. It doesn't happen at a random time. When is that time? These are both time. The beginning of the month is a time. When they call me is a time. So
For me,
when's
it's
your time?
closer to the end of the month. You know, if I got 1 week to go in October and I'm like, holy cow, I'm out of money.
Okay, so that's going to be an end of the month call. I understand. I've made a call like that to my mom. Okay. Tell me, I forgot your name already.
Oh, I'm the one that said the beginning of the month.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I broke my arm, and I know what that's like. And I broke my wrist, and a finger, 2 toes, and a leg, all in different accidents. That's pretty accident. Yeah. You did that all at once. You probably did.
Right now.
Yeah. Now is a time. Glenn.
Monday morning.
Monday morning. Okay, that's good. That's good. Now we're on the next row back.
Since I said I'd choose my parents, I would just call at night, like after the day's done. Call
Yeah,
when the day's over.
Okay. That's pretty good.
I'll do it after a couple beers, probably.
When I was drunk. Okay. I can't drink anymore. I have an MS, multiple sclerosis, and it affects your balance, and you cannot drink when you have this. I figured that out the hard way. Go ahead.
Since I said my parents, I probably wouldn't ask them during tax season because they're accountants.
Okay, so not during, after tax season, not during tax season. Good for your parents, they're accountants. That's a good career. Okay, now I'm on the last row.
I'd probably say yesterday.
Yesterday. So that we'll put that right there with now.
I would say when I'm at home visiting, so I can, when I'm there in person.
When I'm at home. Okay. I'm just gonna say some things because all y'all have been very courteous in answering my questions, and I really, if there's any message, this message may not apply to anything you're doing, and I apologize if I don't fit here. And so fortunately, I'm only here for 1 day, and again, as the lowest rated graduate teacher in the Ag Econ department, you really expect much of me. But the bottom line is, there's no right time to ask. There's no right time to ask. My wife and I have been married 36 years. One day she came over to see me at school. It was a Saturday. I was working. She took me out of my office. We walked up on a hill behind my office, and by the president's house. It was really pretty. And she looked at me and she said, "Ask me to marry you." And I thought, well, this one's pretty good. This one's smarter than me. I think will you marry me? Bam, I made the decision. My whole life flashed before me, but I made the decision. But she could have asked me at 8 in the morning. She could have awakened me at 2 in the morning and asked me. She could have asked me when I was in the bathroom and the door was locked and she was outside. It didn't matter when she asked me. I was going to say yes. Does that make sense? So people who are going to do things with you, you can't finesse it. I guess there's some things in life you can finesse, but what's really important in getting a yes to your ask is that these people know you, they have a relationship with you, and really what didn't come up is they really believe in you. Believe in you. That is the most important thing to getting money. These people have to believe in you. That's way more important than anything else. If they don't believe in you, you got nothing. The finesse, the presentation, how good the proposal is and all, that can never make up for if they believe in you or they don't. And I'm going to come back to this and talk about it because it relates to what I was asked to talk about today, because I still haven't gotten anywhere near what I was asked to talk about. And on the amount, and again, I know Gary's been overseas and done a lot of stuff. I mean, I've been to Cancun one time and Tijuana twice. I think I went to Nogales once. I mean, I am not a well-traveled man nor a well-funded man. But when I am just personally trying to raise money for, let's say, our academic quiz bowl team, that was the biggest fundraise I had to do this year. I'll try and come up with names of people that know me really well, and then I'll call them up on the phone. This is the kind of fundraising I do. It's student-related type stuff. And I will usually ask them for a small amount and let them, not $5, but it just depends. If I'm calling somebody who's a pretty recent former student and I got a student activity that's really related to something they do and I know they have a good job, and I know they got their good job because of Dr. Litzenberg or somebody around my department who causes people to get jobs, I might ask them for $50 or something. I would never ask anybody like that for more than $50. And if I'm calling a really successful business person, I mean somebody who I know is extremely successful, we'll define that in a minute. I mean, I might at the most ask for $500 or $1,000 and let them volunteer if they want to give more money, because I get extremely uncomfortable asking people for money. I don't like to do it. And so I want to make sure they know me, and we're going to talk about how that happens, and that they really like me a lot. And then I want to ask them for a small amount, but have my cause be good enough that they can volunteer a bigger amount if they want to. Because I have not structured I have friends who structure basically their whole academic program around raising money. And I don't do that. And the reason I don't do that is because a lot of my students are not sufficient. We'll play a game now. Tell me your name again. Beth. Beth owns a company, Beth Inc. It's a really big, successful company. I could have a relationship with her that was really close if I was supplying my really top students to her. Does that make sense? And I could really cultivate and work hard to help her. But tell me your name one more time. Aparupa. But Aparupa, and I know my hand is cold. Don't be mad at me, Mrs. Siebert. She's always too hot and I'm always too cold. But we work together somehow. But Aparupa, if you're my student and you don't meet Beth's criteria, maybe you're not from the right place, or you're not the right gender, or you're not the right age, or you're not smart enough, or you're not gracious enough, or whatever the thing is, I'm still extremely concerned about you, and I would refuse to focus my whole life about raising money because it wouldn't reach my goal with you. Does that make sense? Okay. So, you can, I guess, bend your whole teaching program around meeting people who have money and trying to raise money. I just don't do that. Now, I'll tell you who those people are. You should invite them to class. They're really good. way more money than I'll ever raise.
John, we may have an assumption, though, that not all of us are working on. Are we asking for money as a donation? Are we asking money as an investment?
Okay. Let's talk about, I think, and when I get into the business model, I think we can cover that. Asking money as an investment. I would say this, in business, and I worked in business for a long time before I came here. I can't say I was a very good businessman. In fact, I was not. But most people, unless I had this kind of connection with them, they sat out in the waiting room for 45 minutes before I came out to get them. And usually when they came into my office, I kicked them out really quick. Pretty much no matter what they had. I mean, people always say it's not personal, it's business. For me, whenever I heard that phrase, I knew I had a bad relationship on my hand, and that was somebody I knew we were headed for a wreck. It was just a question of who was going to get hurt, me or the other person. Usually it was me. I don't know. I don't know. Business. I don't miss it. I really don't miss it at all. Okay, now we'll talk about business. I'll show you what I think is the best model to understand a business. And I can't really speak for public entities. I mean, I'm working on a little tiny public entity project right now that they recruited me for. It's rinky-dink. I'm only going to get maybe $500 out of it. Probably won't do it next year. This is a really simple model. I'm not going to talk about the SWOT model. I call it the 6 forces model. I'll talk about the SWOT model later. This is a model that Michael Porter created it. He's a very famous management professor, and this is the model I taught in a class where I had the lowest rated graduate class. Michael Porter is a famous Harvard professor. He's so famous that we've had Cisco, the largest food distribution classes, come to campus several times to talk to my class. Lots of different people. And when Ken Spittler was president, he came. And Ken just offhandedly mentions, oh yeah, we had Michael Porter out here for a seminar. And so to get somebody like Michael Porter, who's probably the most famous academic management professor in the country, or one of them, I don't know what that cost, probably $50,000. Okay, so I mean, they got money to spend. Porter said, and I added a 6 force, he called it the 5 forces model, but he missed a force that's really important, so I added it when I teach it. He's basically trying to predict how successful a company will be. So this is what he's trying to do. That's all he's trying to do. And so he says a company success is determined by different things. One is its competition between, or with, I should say with, competition with similar firms. So I went to work for a milk cooperative. We competed with 6 other milk cooperatives and a whole host of other milk purchasing entities. Some of them were located in areas where milk production was much more abundant than where we were operating. So we had a procurement cost disadvantage. I wasn't smart enough to really think about that or understand that before I went to work there. That was hard for us. The other firms, so another force is the bargaining power of suppliers. I'm going to talk about, because every firm has to buy, or vendors, bargaining power of suppliers. Every firm has to buy from suppliers. So this model, have you done this model before? Okay, so everybody's okay, this is something new. So, we'll compare my firm. I work for a milk processing cooperative. We processed in our plant. We competed with lots of other cooperatives. And the bargaining power of suppliers, where we were, was more difficult because we were in the north. It was hilly. The farms were little. They didn't expand as fast. They didn't have as much milk. They didn't have as many cows. They weren't desperate to sell their milk. So it was hard for me to go out and get people to sell milk to my cooperative. And I had friends whose cooperatives were further down the Central Valley, or better yet, in the Central Valley. And their farms were much more robust, and they had much less competition buying milk. So basically their financial structure over time grew much stronger than ours. So if you compared their balance sheet to ours, what you find out is that we had a lot more money borrowed than they did relative to our total assets. Make sense? So that's one way you could look at competition between firms. Who has the most or who has the least debt? Who's the best financed? If you talk to Mr. Paul Cruzy at Bluebell Premier, he'd tell you they have only one debt other than just trade credit. And it's the state of Oklahoma made a loan to them when they built their plant up there that was so cheap they couldn't turn it down. It's probably paid off now, though, given what interest is earning. So they had no debt. A really successful firm has no debt whatsoever. So bargaining power, competition between similar firms. My company wasn't doing too well. Another company I want to talk about, probably the most successful company I've ever worked with, is called Beef Products Incorporated. Beef Products Incorporated is a meat processing company. They have a plant in Amarillo, and they're up in like South Dakota or Kansas, those kind of places. They buy fat from packing plants all over the U.S., and they extract from the packing plants the remnants of meat in that fat. And then they make a lean textured meat product that's added to hamburgers, so that when you go buy hamburger at H-E-B and it says 80% fat, 20%, it's 80% lean, 20% fat, or it says 97% or 95% lean, 5% fat, that product, the 80-20 product isn't made with a lot of help from BPI, but the 95-5 couldn't exist without BPI. That product didn't exist when I was a younger man. So BPI, their suppliers basically have fat, which is worth very little, animal fat, and they have a choice. They can sell animal fat as maybe a feed or some sort of industrial ingredient or something like that, or they can throw it in the garbage, or they can sell it to BPI and actually make money from it. Does that make sense? So their fat suppliers, they just want to get rid of this so it doesn't go down the drain. Does that make sense? So BPI has BPI is here. They have huge bargaining power over their suppliers. That's really different from Bluebell, who we think of as a really successful company. But Bluebell does not have a lot of bargaining power over their suppliers, because their suppliers, there's not much milk produced in this part of Texas. It's not a good place to be a cow or a person, as far as the weather goes. And so Bluebell has a lot of bargaining power with supplier problems if you talk to them, even though they're extremely successful companies. And my company had horrible bargaining power with suppliers. Bargaining power of customers. Bargaining power of customers. So over here, my company that I work for, we were a milk cooperative. We sold tank loads of milk, truck loads of milk to people every day. Enormous supply. You need 60 loads of milk? I got it. It was just enormous volumes. And then we made some mixes and butter and cheese and all, and we sold to retailers, a lot of retailer plants we sold to. They had a lot of bargaining power over us. They could reach further down or up in the valley and get other suppliers to sell to them. These sessions were not real pleasant. When I have people visit class, if they're a branded food company, usually they'll say the most difficult company they sell to is H-E-B. If they're a branded company, if they're Slovakian sausage, they probably wouldn't say that. But if you had somebody here from Mrs. Baird's, they would probably tell you they'd rather sell to Walmart than to Mrs. Baird's, which gives you than to H-E-B, which gives you an idea how much bargaining power exists over here on this. Because basically the grocery stores own all the shelf space. So if you want to get your product in there, they either say yes or no. And if you go into H-E-B, you won't find much Skippy peanut butter, because something went wrong with that relationship. And H-E-B was pounding, and Skippy was going, no. Well, we finally give up, because part of selling is deciding who you don't want to sell to, not who you do want to sell to. But BPI, on the other hand, because you've got a whole bunch of people that want to sell hamburger or that are making hamburger, and they want to take the fat, which is the low value part of the hamburger, and extend it more. They can buy this lean meat product that BPI yanked out of the fat over here, the little pieces of meat. They can buy that lean meat product, put it in their hamburger, and add a lot of value to their product. And since BPI is the only company that owns the proprietary technology to make that lean textured meat product, the bargaining power is so it's a plus for here. It's a plus for here. It's nobody else. When they've been to class, they've said, "Well, nobody else has our technology." And when you see the videos they show, you can believe it. I mean, so they're a plus. Threat of new entry. Another thing that causes a firm to be really strong is if there's no one else that's going to enter their business and start lowering their prices. So the cell phone business was great until Apple got in it, and now you've seen lots of people have difficulty in the business. But because Beef Products Incorporated owns all the technology that makes this equipment, there's no firms getting in the business. So they're a plus there. Like Bluebell Premier, they have their name established. The threat of new entry for them is not that great. Nobody's going to start an ice cream company. I mean, I make sure when I go to the store I buy their ice cream, but it's because of how much I like them, I guess. Threat of new entry. Then there's threat of product substitutes. Right now, turkey is being pushed as a big substitute to ground hamburger. You see commercials on it. Hormel's doing that. I guess that's a product substitute for BPI, but there aren't a lot of substitutes for hamburger. So again, BPI is doing pretty good there. When I was in the milk business, we were selling fluid milk. Fruit juice was really popular. It was killing us. Later on, it was water that was killing the industry. By then, I was already out. I didn't have to fight that battle. And then the last one is threat of government regulation. So these are probably some basic things that really determine how well a business does. And there are very, very few businesses that can put a plus in each one of those 6 boxes. The only one I could think of was BPI. Their technology, USDA continues to say, reduces the probability that there'll be any kind of HO157:07 or whatever it is, E. coli infestation or contamination of ground meat. And so that when they've had regulatory battles, usually USDA has said, unlike with almost every other meat processor they dealt with, this is a good product. So BPI is the kind of company, they're privately owned. A lot of times I talk to my students about companies that are privately owned, have no debt, privately owned. Are growing. Oh, wait. They have a great reputation. And are growing their sales. I call it PNRG. A lot of times I talk to students about PNRG companies. There aren't too many. Bluebell is a PNRG, example of a PNRG company. HEB would be an example of a PNRG company. Whataburger, Jason's Deli, BPI is definitely one. BWI, large wholesale industry. So if you had an idea that somehow meant something to the people so let's say someone gives money to support what I'm doing in my class. Let's say somebody does that. And the money that comes to my class really doesn't come because they know me the way we talked about our parents knowing me. It comes because they know my students. And there's something about my students and A&M and what I'm doing for my students that causes the money to just be a yes answer. Because as soon as they see me, instantly they map me with my students and they like my students, and that's why if you walk up one floor, you see Marcus Hill's name on your donation plaques there, because I'm sure when Marcus Hill wrote that check, he probably didn't say, he already knew what it was for, and he already knew the money wasn't going to be wasted, and he probably still, when he sees that plaque, smiles, because it's so important to him, because he knows the students and cares. You know, they know my students and they care about my students, and that's why people give money to me. It really has almost nothing to do with me, other than they trust me as a conduit to them. Does that make sense? So if you could find a project that Beef Products Incorporated, because they're firing on all 6 cylinders here, and because they're a PNRG company, if you could find a project that they really liked, you know, that somehow involved people that they knew about and cared about, if you could pitch that project to BW or Beef Products Incorporated, man, they would listen. I can't remember the name of the guy that owns it. He and his wife owned it. They would listen, and you'd probably get your money. And they, you know, and I always kind of divide people into 2 groups. They're sort of the ones that you ask for the money, and like you ask them on a Monday, and they say we'll send it, and like you go to your mailbox and it's there by Wednesday. And there's another group where maybe it's there by Wednesday of the next month. And there's another group that said it will come, and it never comes. And there's all 3 groups are out there, and all 3 groups answer your phone calls. But Beef Products Incorporated would be the kind of company that because they're PNRG, they have no debt, because they're privately owned, they can make their own decision. Nobody else, they don't have to ask anybody else, and because they're doing so well competitively, if they said they were going to do something, that would be the type of thing that I would guess the check would come to you extremely quickly. And whenever I'm fundraising, I'm not a long-term fundraiser. I don't work for the foundation at all, so I'm never thinking. I don't have a 3-year plan. I have a this-year plan and these students that are here right now. So that's what. Does anybody have a question so far? Go ahead and visit with your neighbors, because I'll draw the SWOT model over here while you do that. So we'll talk about that next.
Order had 5 courses. You got 6. Which one did you add?
Oh, good question, Glenn. This one. In agriculture, because we're in agribusiness, government can really make or break your business. And so you have, the threat of government regulation, in my opinion, I don't like to talk about politics, but it's certainly, other people talk a lot about how it's one of the things that the Obama administration has really, really missed is the influence of regulation and how many problems it's causing in the business world. So, if Barack Obama changed that one thing, he certainly might get my vote. But right now, with what he's doing, there's no way he will, because he's doing so much damage to so many businesses right there. And that's a big issue for us in agriculture. And when Michelle Bachmann says, I want to abolish EPA, I just look at her and go, yeah, so do I. But that's just partly because of my own personal bad historic experiences with EPA that have nothing to do with working at A&M. But that's why I added it. And I think Porter would have added it too if he would have been stuck only in the segment of agribusiness. But he has the whole business world to play in, so that he doesn't think like that.
We've got about 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, the SWOT model is really simple. All it says is you look inside a company. You look inside a company and you ask what are its strengths and weaknesses. And you look outside a company, strengths, weaknesses, and you say what are its opportunities and what are its threats. And it's a model just to help you organize your thinking. It's a much simpler model. And like the 6 forces model, it's really only valuable if you can compare companies to one another and come up with a continuum. Because these models by themselves, it's really easy for somebody to say, yeah, I've got a job, I got a chance to go to work for this insurance company. Well, how many insurance companies are there? Woodman of the World's putting on a free seminar if you want to be an insurance salesperson. I saw it in the paper today when I was reading the paper. So the competition with similar firms is infinite. The threat of new entry, constant new entry. Threat of product substitutes, well, there's so many different people trying to get people's investment money. There's probably not that many threats to the insurance
agency. I don't know, bargaining power of suppliers and people supplying money to the insurance companies is probably not very low, but the bargaining power of the customers, I have so many to choose from, government regulation, that's kind of a problem for them. I mean, the insurance company, take the insurance company and put it up on this grid, it's a disaster. You know, how you can have a successful company like Germania is, that's really, really an achievement. When you're dealing with those people, when you're talking with some of this, but they're in a much more difficult business environment than, let's say, Beef Products Incorporated or a bunch of wholesale industries. And it's the strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats. It's the same model. You'd have to stack companies next to each other. I always tell my students to watch out for challenges. Oh, by the way, the man this room is named after, Mr. Swinbank, he would be a PNRG type person. Okay, but I always tell my students, don't look for challenges because they're everywhere. If I want to walk out into this hall, I don't try and run through the chalkboard and run through this wall. I open the door. So whatever you're doing, always try and do it the easiest way possible when you're thinking about how to do it. That's what I'll close with. Don't do it illegally. Just do it the easiest way you can. Right? There is no right way, right time to call if they like you. So that's all. Anybody have a question?
I just have a comment. I just thought this was really good. The first part of what you did for this was really applicable to me. So I thought I would just encourage you. Me and my husband are both in school, and we're making payments over the semester, and our last payment's due November 15th. So we're like punching numbers yesterday, and we're like $800 short, and we're not sure where it's going to come from. So this was good.
Yeah. Well, the answer is, we moved here. I didn't take the job offer that paid the most. I took the one that meant the most. And we moved here, and about 2 or 3 years went by, and the credit cards were kind of out of control, and my kids needed cars, and finally I called up my mom. I said, Mom, I need $5,000. You help me. You know, I mean, a couple of days later, the check was in the mail. You know, it was no big deal. That was probably the only time in my life. Although there were a couple other times. But, you know, who helped me the most? It was definitely my mom and dad. I mean, there's just no question. I hope I can do the same for my kids. Hopefully everybody has somebody like that.
So what kind of a business plan do you need to launch this? We've got the forces.
Tell me what you mean, Glenn.
Well, do you have a business plan that goes with this idea for money and the analysis?
I mean, that business plan has to basically focus on something that whoever you're going to ask really, really cares about and knows, has a long relationship with, and really, that's the guts of the business plan right there. One of my students went to Africa this summer with a crazy organization I've never heard of. He's one of my best students. He was on the academic quiz bowl team. He asked me for some money. I just wrote him a check. I mean, I could try and understand the cause. I guess it's a good cause. I really don't care about it that much. I have a whole bunch of other causes I care about way more. But because of who Wilson Aldercorn was, he was an immigrant to the U.S. When he first was in my class, his English was broken. He became like the top performing student on the academic quiz bowl team. He placed 3rd place this year. Anyway, he asked me for money. I'm not going to tell him no. But it's not because of what he was doing. It was because of how well I know him. So that's my theory. What's the saying? It's not what you know. It's who you know and how much you like. How much they like you. Well, I don't think that who you know is very important. I think it's all about how much they like you. You know, how much they like whatever your cause is. You have to find something. I don't know what BPI likes, but whatever it is, I guarantee you they could fund that thing up to you know what. And not even field. Not even field expense. I mean, it's just, I don't know how to tap into them. I had one student who went to work for him for a year. He was a graduate for your department, Will McDonald. Really, really good student. And I know I can't work with that company by selling them students because their operations are so far away. It's just not an angle at all. Most students don't want to move north for very long. So anyway, that's all I got. I had fun. Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it. Good idea. Very painful, but good. I can see why they gave you this assignment. Nobody else had the guts to do it. So you'll go far in life.